My name is Arthur Penhaligon. I am 78 years old. I've spent most of my life as an architect, designing structures meant to last for centuries, stone, steel, and glass. I understood the integrity of buildings, the importance of a solid foundation, and the necessity of regular maintenance to prevent decay. But as I sit here today, in a house that feels far too large, I realize I failed to apply those same principles to the most important structure I ever built, my marriage to Elena. Elena and I were together for 46 years. We met in the autumn of 1974. She was a cellist with a laugh that sounded like bright water over stones. I was a young man with a blueprint for everything. I thought I knew what the good life looked like. I thought I knew what she needed. But looking back from the vantage point of nearly 8 decades, I see that I was looking at the map while completely missing the landscape. 3 years ago, Elena was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It started with misplaced keys and ended with her looking at me, the man who had held her hand through 4 decades, and asking me if I was the doctor coming to check her vitals. She passed away 14 months after the formal diagnosis. People often say that Alzheimer's is the long goodbye, and in many ways it is. But for me, the most painful realization wasn't that I was losing her to a disease. It was the realization that I had started losing her years before the first symptom appeared. I had been losing her in the quiet moments of not now and maybe later. For most of our lives, if you had asked our neighbors or our 3 grown children, they would have said we were the gold standard. We didn't have screaming matches. I never cheated. I provided a beautiful home in the suburbs, paid for the best schools, and made sure we had a comfortable retirement fund. I was, by all societal accounts, a good husband. But good is a dangerous word. It breathes a specific kind of arrogance. Because I was doing the big things right, I felt entitled to ignore the small things. Elena was a woman of deep, quiet passions. She loved the theater, not the big Broadway productions, but the small, experimental black box theaters where the actors were so close you could hear them breathe. She would bring me flyers for shows, her eyes shining. "Arthur, look at this one. It's a retelling of Chekhov. Shall we go Friday?" And I, tired from a day of arguing with contractors and city planners, would look at my plate and say, "Friday, I've got that early meeting on Saturday, Elle, and honestly, those seats are always so uncomfortable. Why don't you go with Margaret?" So she went with Margaret. Then she went with her sister. Eventually, she stopped asking me altogether. I thought I was being efficient with my energy. I thought I was just being practical, but I didn't realize I was systematically dismantling the bridge between us, one stone at a time. There is a specific kind of pride that men of my generation often carry. We like to be right. We like to be the ones with the answers. I remember one summer, about 15 years ago, Elena wanted to plant a Japanese Zen garden in the backyard. She had books on it, sketches of where the raked sand and the mossy rocks should go. I looked at her plans and immediately started pointing out the flaws. "The drainage won't work there, Elena. The moss will die in this heat. It's an expensive hobby that will look like a mess in 2 years. I was right from a technical standpoint. I was the architect, after all. But I was devastatingly wrong as a partner. I chose the correctness of the drainage system over the closeness of a shared project. She put the books away. She never mentioned the garden again. When she was in the middle stages of her illness, during one of those rare moments of lucidity that break your heart, She looked at the brown, flat grass of our backyard and whispered, "I always wondered what the sound of the rake on the sand would have felt like. It would have been so peaceful, wouldn't it?" I couldn't look her. I had spent 40 years being right, and all it had bought me was a yard full of dead grass and a wife who had learned to keep her dreams to herself. After the funeral, I had to do the task every widower dreads, going through her things. In the back of her closet, tucked behind old coats, I found a series of sketchbooks. I knew Elena liked to doodle, but I didn't know she had been documenting our life for 40 years. They weren't just drawings, they were observations. There was a sketch of me from 1988, sitting at my desk, hunched over blueprints. Underneath, she had written, "He is 10 feet away, but he is on the moon. I wonder if he knows I bought the blue dress he likes today." I didn't know. I hadn't noticed the dress. There was another sketch from 2005, a drawing of 2 chairs at a dinner table with a vast, yawning chasm drawn between them. The caption read, "The silence is getting louder. I try to speak, but the words feel like they might break the peace he values so much. So I stay quiet. We are very peaceful now." That word, peaceful, hit me like a physical blow. I had mistaken her silence for contentment. I had mistaken our lack of conflict for harmony. I didn't realize that a relationship without conflict is often a relationship that is simply given up. You only fight for things you believe can be saved. When you stop fighting, it's often because you've already checked out. I'm sharing this because most of you reading this still have the one thing I threw away: time. We treat time as if it's an infinite resource, especially in our relationships. We treat our partners like furniture. We assume they'll always be in the same spot, waiting for us when we decide to sit down. But people aren't furniture. They are gardens. If you don't water them, if you don't tend to them, they don't just sit there. They wither. Here is what I wish I had known at 30, at 40, and even at 60. Presence is more than proximity. You can be in the same room, on the same couch, even in the same bed, and be 1,000 miles away. If your eyes are on a screen and your mind is on your to-do list, you aren't with them. You're just taking up space. Curiosity is the antidote to complacency. The moment you think you know everything about your partner is the moment the relationship starts to die. People change. They evolve. Ask them what they're afraid of today. Ask them what they're dreaming about this week. Don't assume the answers are the same as they were in 1995. The small stuff is actually the big stuff. The pottery classes, the walks in the rain, the silly questions about would you rather. Those aren't distractions from a life together. They are the life together. Everything else is just logistics. Validate their joy. When your partner comes to you with an idea, a dream, or a small excitement, don't be the voice of reason first. Be the voice of support first. You can figure out the drainage for the Zen garden later. First, just acknowledge that the garden is a beautiful idea because it matters to them. A final request. I have a photograph on my mantle. It's Elena in the late 90s. We were on vacation in Italy, a trip I complained about the entire time because of the cost and the flight duration. In the photo, she's standing on a balcony in Florence, looking out over the Duomo. She looks radiant, but if you look closely, really closely, you can see the way she's holding her own hand. She was comforting herself. She had learned to be her own companion because I wasn't interested in being hers. I live with that photograph every day. I live with the what-ifs. What if I had said yes to the dancing lessons? What if I had listened to her talk about her music instead of nodding while thinking about work? What if I had chosen to be close instead of being right? Don't be like me. Don't wait for a diagnosis or a deadline to start loving the person you chose. Love isn't a state of being. It's an active verb. It requires effort, sweat, and the occasional sacrifice of your own comfort. Go to your partner today. Not tonight, not this weekend, today. Look at them. Ask them something you haven't asked in a decade. And when they speak, put your phone down, clear your mind, and actually listen. Because one day, the house will be silent, and you would give every correct argument you ever won just to hear them ask you to go to a bad play one more time.